wild and wonderful world in which we live has a never-ending capacity to take my breath away with awe. Hiking in New Hampshire on a fog-shrouded trail surrounded by balsam firs whose calming scent fills the air while all is cloaked in stillness. The sole sounds are the drip of water from the needles hitting the forest floor and the call of a white-throated sparrow piercing the gloom. Enveloped in that wilderness, I feel my essential connection to the earth, captured by the creation story in Genesis, which describes people as humans formed from the humus, the fertile soil. Connecting to nature grounds me in that reality that I'm not separate from the cosmos, but part of it, which is why I experience the abiding presence of the Holy Trinity infusing the tranquility of the forest. I'm far from alone, as those of other faith traditions and atheists alike find their hearts quickened in nature. There's nothing inherently holy about a beautiful sunrise if we have a solely mechanistic view of the universe, and yet rare is the person who does not feel a sense of something more breaking in and through the natural world. The 17th century French mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote in his work Pensées, "What can be seen on earth indicates neither the total absence nor the manifest presence of divinity, but the presence of a hidden God. Everything bears this stamp," Pascal added then. There's enough light for those who desire only to see, and enough darkness for those of contrary disposition. As Jesus would say, it is for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. When William Temple, who would be the Archbishop of Canterbury during the Second World War, wrote of a sacramental universe, he was in harmony with his friend Oliver Quick, who taught in an important work of theology in which he described our sacramental world. Yet finding God in nature alone leads to an impoverished faith for the theologian, as he wrote that while the general revelation of God in nature is wondrous, it speaks clearest when it helps us to see more clearly the specific revelation of the second person of the Trinity being made human in Jesus. For we know that Jesus was the incarnate Word. What we glimpse imperfectly through the material world, we see revealed fully in Jesus. Through his life and ministry and death and resurrection, Jesus provides the bridge connecting the sacramental universe in which we live to the Holy Trinity, which is its animating source and ultimate destination. This week, Victoria tells us about a very different mystic, a Swiss psychiatrist.
As with the other mystics I've mentioned, Carl Jung is someone I've been familiar with for quite a while. Unlike them, it took me a long time to realize he's actually a mystic. I was so focused on his psychology and work with dreams, symbolism, and archetypes that I couldn't see the forest for the trees. In a letter from March of 1955, Jung wrote, "I find that all my thoughts circle around God, like the planets around the sun, and are as irresistibly attracted by him. I would feel it the grossest sin were I to oppose any resistance to this force." Born in 1875, Jung was not a church-going Christian even at his death in 1961. He remained very critical of organized religion. Yet, according to Richard Rohr, Jung knew absolutely and believed completely that the inner life was the source of the outer life. In an interview with John Freeman for BBC television in March of 1959, when asked, "Do you now believe in God?" Jung replied without hesitation, "I know. I don't need to believe. I know." When writing about the Rhineland mystics, Rohr said that Jung saw the life of Jesus and many of the doctrines of the church as a complete and perfect map and guide for human transformation. He believed in the central importance of rituals, myths, and symbols. His development of concepts such as shadow, paradox, archetypes, symbols, Rohr writes, and the psychological character of human transformation into the divine made him a true prophet of the soul and a teacher of deep inner sacramentalism. Rohr notes that Jung believed that if God wants to speak to us, then God must use words that will seem like our own thoughts. How else could God come to us, Rohr says. That's why we have to be taught how to recognize, honor, and allow that sometimes our thoughts are God's thoughts. Jung wanted all to realize that there are already numinous voices in our deepest depths, according to Rohr. If we do not have a deep contact with our in-depth self, Rohr writes, he believed we could not know God. In a psychological approach to the dogma of the Trinity, Jung wrote, the whole world is God's suffering. As Rohr has noted, a mystic sees things in wholes, not just in parts, the forest, not just the trees. And mystics understand that every incidence of suffering is a participation in what we Christians would call the eternal crucifixion of the Christ. But Jung found God not just inside, but outside. Plants were bound for good or ill to their places, he wrote. They express not only beauty, but also the thoughts of God's world, with an intent of their own and without deviation. Trees in particular were mysterious and seemed to me direct embodiments of the incomprehensible meaning of life. For that reason, the woods were the places where I felt closest to the deepest meaning and to its awe-inspiring workings.
When I was in seminary in Alexandria, Virginia, Victoria, our daughter Griffin, and I enjoyed visiting Huntley Meadows Park, where a half-mile boardwalk wound its way through the midst of a 1,400-acre wetland. We also saw Discovery Channel moments from the elevated path. On a most memorable Saturday, we watched quite closely as a snake caught a frog in its mouth and started working to get its jaw around the prey, wriggling to break free. Another frog saw this happen and it began to launch itself against the snake. The attack worked. The first frog sprang free, and then faster than the blink of an eye, the snake snagged that second frog and soon had successfully swallowed it. We were amazed by the self-sacrificing action of the little amphibian. We have no way of knowing whether the snake's morning meal thought of its actions as intentionally sacrificial and giving its life for a friend. Maybe not. But it was impossible for us to completely divorce the drama we were enthralled to see play itself out feet from the boardwalk from our faith in Jesus. Describe a time in which you felt God's presence in nature. How might the sense of the divine one experiences in creation point toward the God revealed most fully in Jesus?